Hey everyone, I'm Corey High, the percussion professor at Newberry College in Newberry, South Carolina. In this video, we are going to go over how to get the best sound production possible from marimba, but really it applies to any keyboard percussion instrument. The biggest thing to look for when setting the height of the instrument is how the mallet head connects with the bar of the keyboard. What we don't want to happen is the mallet at a downward angle so that the top or the crown of the mallet head is hitting the bar instead of the side face. If we're contacting the keyboard bar with the crown of the mallet head, we'll get more of a muted tone than the full sound that we're looking for. On the other hand, if the instrument's too high, we run the chance of hitting the wooden shaft of the mallet on the bar. One of the easiest ways to help your sound production is to just choose the correct mallet for what you're playing. So many times I hear high school students come in and audition with super hard mallets because usually that's what they're used to in either marching band situation or a band situation, like a full band situation, where we need to have harder mallets so we can cut through the sound of the full ensemble. Many times though, if you're auditioning like solo rep or playing in solo and ensemble, anything like that, we don't need as hard of a mallet as we think. Don't be afraid to experiment with the softer side of mallets, especially if you are not competing with other instruments. The next way to ensure that we're getting the best sound from the instrument is to make sure we're using a proper stroke. Meaning we're using a wrist stroke and not a full arm motion. Full arm motion, you're running the chance of one, cracking the bar, and then also just getting an overplaying sound to the instrument. So get in the habit of one, using wrist, but also lifting your stroke so we're not playing a down stroke with too much force into the instrument. So let's talk about beating spots of the bar. This will completely change the sound production you're getting, especially if you're hitting in a not ideal location. The ideal beating spot of a marimba bar is right off center, not dead center. As you probably know, you can use the very edge of the accidental bars as a secondary beating spot. This is super helpful if you're playing a fast passage and you just don't have the time to travel all the way to the off-center beating spot of those accidental bars. But this comes with a little bit of danger as you're a lot closer to the node where the string runs through the bar. It's super important if you're using that edge beating spot for accidentals that you're really hitting on the true edge of the bar and you're not cheating by going in a little bit. Even if you move in by half an inch of that edge closer to that node spot, you can immediately tell a sound difference. So this is a side-by-side comparison of hitting in the ideal off-center spot, the ideal accidental edge spot, and then going too far in from that edge spot and hitting the node. I like to teach my students that if they are going for that edge beating spot, half of their mallet should be on and half should be off. In other terms, the very middle of the mallet head should be what is contacting the very edge of the bar. If you're hitting those node spots, it's kind of like a mute on some of the notes. And if you're muting some of the notes and the rest of the notes sound fine, it's kind of highlighting which ones you're not hitting correctly. And that's pretty much all people are going to hear, is those few notes that aren't speaking the same as the others, not speaking like they should. And that's what we want to avoid. We want all the notes to have the full range of sound that they're capable of. So the easiest way to practice this is to take post-it notes and put them on the accidental keys so that the very edge of the bar is not covered by the post-it note. If you're playing in the correct spot with those on, the post-it notes will not affect your sound. However, if you go too far in, you will hear the slap of the post-it note, and it's kind of just like an auditory cue that you're not hitting in the ideal spot. In this example, I'm playing just a B flat major scale up and down, and I have post-it notes on B flat, E flat, and then the next B flat. This post-it note trick is super helpful. A lot of times while we're practicing, we're not really paying as much attention as we should to our sound production, just because there's a million other things to think about. The notes, the rhythms, am I gonna hit this next part right? You know, just a million different things. So this is a good way to hear an outside audio cue. So every time you hit that post-it note, it sends a red flag. Hey, I went too far in on that beating spot. So I will take that section and just rep it a bunch of times and really just get the muscle memory of getting that good beating spot. This also applies to four mallet playing. A lot of the times in one hand, we might have a natural note and then a accidental note. It's much easier to have the natural note in that off-center position and then the accidental note in that edge position, just so we're not overextending, and a lot of times in context, we're moving fast, so we have to go to that edge spot. These examples show the difference between getting that true edge spot between two mallets in one hand and then getting a node spot. As you can see, it's really hard to hear that pitch that we're hitting the note on, as the other pitch that has the full range of sound from that off-center position is overpowering the other one. So if we're trying to get a block chord, and some of the notes are hitting the node instead of a good edge spot, we won't hear those notes, so that full chord might not sound. We might only hear 1, 2, or 3 of the 4 notes that we're supposed to be hearing. Interval jumps pose another issue in good sound production. While our up and down strokes might be good, if we have to move left or right with our hands, like if we're jumping a big gap, that side motion might add more velocity to our downward stroke. So when we move, we're accenting whatever note we're moving to without actually intending to accent it. These following examples show just a very simple exercise where we are trying to get all of the notes in one dynamic range. So not phrasing, just keeping everything as similar as possible as far as dynamics. This is Bach's Cello Suite in G major, just the first couple measures. There are multiple interval leaps with each hand, both left and right, and you will hear the difference between a good interval leap where added velocity is not a factor, and then a bad interval leap where moving left or right adds an accent. Some of this I accented a lot just to show you what it might sound like. The biggest way to counteract this problem and so many other problems is to just practice slow. You've probably heard this a million times, but it does work. I know it's boring and very tedious in the practice room, but when you practice slow, you are really training yourself to move in the correct ways from the start. If you can do it slow, then when you get faster with it, you will have an easier time because it's already ingrained into your muscle memory. So I hope something in this video helped you. Please subscribe for more videos like this. I have one on 4 mallet warm-ups that you might be interested in, and the next one is going to be on snare drum sound production. If you have any questions about what was covered in this video or anything percussion, or if you want to know more about Newberry College, feel free to email me at coreyhigh@gmail.com. Thanks.